Hey, Ryan Hayden here. In this series of videos, I'm going to be showing you how to set up a site on Jekyll, specifically with Cloud Cannon in mind, and using the system that I use for church websites, for missionary websites. And specifically, what we're going to be doing is we are going to be coding out this design. Now, this is a design that I've made for Brian Reese, who you might know from his podcast, but he is a missionary trying to go to Thailand. And so we're going to be coding this design up pretty much from scratch. A couple things that are in place in the base plate already. Speaking of the base plate, before you can use it, you have to have Jekyll installed. And so if you go to jekylrb.com and follow the instructions in their docs, it's fairly simple to install Jekyll. It is a command line tool, and so you have to get comfortable using the command line. And so I'm not going to go through all that, but it's very, very simple to use, and you just have to sort of get used to it. Okay. So after you have Jekyll installed on your computer, what you're going to want to do is you're going to want to go to Pastor Ryan Hayden on GitHub and get the Cloud Cannon starter. That's what I'm calling this one. So it's github.com/Pastor Ryan Hayden /Cloud Cannon starter. And I've already initialized this or cloned this and actually deleted the Git and redid a Git so that we're not overriding this. But I already have that set up here. And so I want to walk you through this really quickly. And I guess the first place to look would probably be in our default layout. So the way the way Jekyll works is it basically creates pages based on layouts, and then those layouts can have an include. So for instance, down here is our home page, and the home page starts with these two sets of 3 dashes, and then it's got what's called YAML in between that, and that is just some extra variables that we can throw into this instance, but this instance is going to use the default layout. So back here in the default layout, you'll see that it's pretty basic. So we have some head stuff up here, and that says include head.html. Well, we can go into our head.html here, and we can see there's not a whole lot going on. It's pulling in our style sheet, it's pulling in something called Thailight, and it's pulling in Font Awesome. Okay, basic stuff in the head. So that's our head back here. You can see that it starts the body and it throws this body class, page.body class. What that allows us to do is back into our page, when we start a new page, we can add a class to that body and use that class in our CSS to target that specific page. Okay, and then we have our nav and our main. Let me explain what that's all about. Okay, I use something called, let me see if I can get there. I use something called slideout.js. Okay. And this is a menu. You can see kind of a thing here. All right, this is a menu pattern that I just like, and I've taken to use on everything. Let's go back over to the design here. If you notice, the design has a menu button in the top right, and what will happen is when you either swipe on a phone or tablet, or you click on this menu button on a desktop, the whole page will slide over and show this menu here. Okay, I like this vertical menu pattern from the right, and I've basically been using it on all my projects. Plan to going forward for a couple reasons. One reason I like it is because I think people are getting more and more used to this kind of a menu, because they do so much on mobile devices these days. I think something like 65% plus of all website visits come from mobile devices. And so people are used to a hamburger menu. I really don't think we need to give the real estate to it on our home page. And so that's one reason. A second reason why I do it is because it allows me, especially on the homepage. My home pages are kind of like splash pages, sales pages, more often than not. They're trying to accomplish something. In this case, they're trying to get meetings booked for a missionary. And so I want as little as possible to distract from that message. And by using a menu like this, people will look for this stuff and they'll find it when they want it, but it's not going to throw those options in their face. It's going to allow me to design to what I want the clients to be looking at, okay? And the third reason that I do it this way is because it's easy and it works with all different kinds of designs, okay? So that's what, let me go back to Sublime Text here. That's why we have this nav set up and then this panel set up, because that's what's required for our JS, okay? Now this menu include menu.html. This is a little chunky right now because this has got lots of stuff already in it, but this is the menu, that slide out menu that we're going to be using, okay? And then we have panel and then content. This content is everything that goes into our index page. So if you're unfamiliar with Jekyll, the way Jekyll works is when you create a new file, anywhere on your, let's say we want to make an about page. Okay, we've got two options. We can call it about us.md for markdown, or we can call it about us.html. And both of them work in Jekyll. So let's say we want to do an HTML page. We need to do two things. We need to start it with 3 dashes, 2 sets of 3 dashes, and then everything underneath these 3 dashes is going to be thrown into whatever layout that we choose. So we're going to do layout default, and let's say we want to do body, class, and we're going to call this about, okay? And let's say those are the only 2 things we're going to put on here. We'll put a title on here. Okay, now any HTML that we put in here, so if I wanted to put a page wrapper in here, okay, any HTML that we put in here is going to get taken and put into this, in the place of this content when Jekyll does its thing, okay? So that's how that works. One last thing here is I've got footer. And in the footer HTML, right now it's basically empty. There's nothing in between the footer div there. But I do have a lot of our scripts that we're going to need. And so I've got jQuery coming in. I've got that slide out JS. And I've got foundation JS coming in. I've also got the necessary JavaScript to run the slide out function. And then I've got 2 things here, 2 tags, this page extra scripts tag and this extra script tags tag and this page extra scripts tag. And if what that does is that allows us, if we wanted to, on our about page, if we wanted to do some custom JavaScript just on that page, what we can do is we can do page extra scripts, and we can put our JavaScript here, and it will show up. It'll get thrown into this document ready function down here when the page is run. So that's pretty nifty, okay, and pretty versatile. So that's how this whole thing works. And what that allows us to do is it allows us to just, basically create as many pages as we want. It's really, really, really simple. One other thing I wanted to show you, I use Foundation, Zerb Foundation. Let me get there real quick. So I use Zerb Foundation on all my sites. It's just because of what I know. I like it a little bit better than Bootstrap. And I have Zerb Foundation already set up to work on this repository. So the file that I'm using right now for my main CSS file is called new.scss. Why new.scss? I don't know. That's just the name that I used several projects back, and I haven't bothered to change it. But I'm doing something kind of neat with this file. It is pulling in from the _sas folder it's pulling in foundation and all the foundation stuff, foundation settings, and it's full, I put all my custom CSS in this components folder. Okay, so that's where my custom Sass goes. But what's cool about this new.scss Jekyll wise is notice that it starts with these two sets of 3 dashes. What those 3 dashes tell is they tell Jekyll when it runs is that you need to do something with this file. And you can only do that if it's in this folder. It won't work in the Sass folder. So what I've got is I've got a data file and I've got this design settings data file. And in this design settings, I have my colors set up. Now when Cloud Cannon runs, these colors are going to be user editable. And I've also got fonts, my main font and secondary font, which will also be user editable. And the way that I make that work is by using them as Jekyll variables. I import them into this main Sass file as Sass variables. I hope I'm not being too confusing here. But by importing them as Sass variables, that means that the client can change the dark color using Jekyll or using Cloud Cannon, and that dark color will be changed in the Sass variable. And when Jekyll runs, it will change the color all throughout the use of that variable in the CSS. So pretty powerful stuff. Of course, one of the cool things about Foundation is that you can go through here to keep everything as lean as possible. Many of these things can probably be commented out because I won't be using them, and then uncommented if I need to use them. And then I've got everything down here that's being pulled in right now from my Sass components folder. All right. One other thing about this project, and that'll be enough for this setup video, is that I prefer to use Sass, the SASS variant, when I'm actually writing CSS, and not SCSS. SCSS is basically like regular CSS. And it's great. It's very powerful. It does everything that SASS does. But I prefer the syntax of Sass, which is indent based for nesting. So it's easier for me to look at. It doesn't require the semicolon on the end. It's just a little bit looser. And so I am very, very used to Sass. And so I will be pulling in Sass and not writing in SCSS unless I have to. Now, the cool thing about Sass, SCSS, is that it doesn't matter to this. It just looks at the end of the file and does that. So in the next several videos, that's what we're going to be doing. We're going to be walking through all of this. Hopefully this wasn't too boring. This is pretty powerful. I mean, you can do a whole lot with this. There's tons and tons of work that I've put into setting this up. And I know that it works for me, okay? So I'm going to be going through how to take this, how to turn this into a Cloud Cannon user editable site, and coding out the page, this design here, coding out the menu. We'll be going through all of that. But just if you want to get started, if you want to follow along, you can start with that GitHub repository and work along with me. Thanks.